I was born in former Yugoslavia, in what is today Bosnia and Herzegovina, and in the early 90s, as you may recall, there was a war there. In 1992, actually a war, the initial stages of which very much reminded me of some of the elements of the current pandemic. In 1991, a couple of the republics of my former country, Yugoslavia, declared independence from the Federation. Slovenia at first, Croatia follows, and Slovenia separated within a fairly brief period of time. In Croatia, the situation was quite a bit more complicated because the population was very ethnically mixed. Some of them wanted to go, some of them wanted to stay. Federal army was sent, and what I consider to be the war of the Balkans, what historians consider the first of the Balkan wars of the 90s officially started. And what I do remember, and elements that very much that I was reminded of when this pandemic started, was the whole process. You are told that the troubles are coming. Your surroundings are changing incrementally. You don't really believe things that you're hearing. You cannot comprehend that people that you thought you knew and are capable of those things. Gradually, the pandemic of war, which is the analogy can very much be made right now, started to move closer and closer towards my home country, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and very similar things that we experienced on this occasion, and I'd say internationally, which occurred. There's uncertainty, there is looming danger, there are conspiracy theories, there's loss of jobs, there is shortage of food, people are losing jobs, you're starting to wonder about people you thought you knew for a very long time. There were many parallels with what we experienced over the past year and a half. But since some of this is included in my talk, I should not reveal too much, and we can start. So, thank you. Well, this is an impromptu story. Yes? Wonderful. Hello, everybody. All right, so I'm a music director and a music scholar. I currently lead a program at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center that applies music to the treatment of cancer and other diseases. I would like to mention that at UTHSC, I have the great pleasure and a privilege of working with two brilliant Temple Israel members, Dr. David Schwartz, who is the chair of radiation oncology, and Dr. Scott Strom, who is the dean of the College of Medicine at UTHSC. The theme for the High Holidays in Temple Israel this year focuses on mind, body, and soul. Earlier this year, many of us, including myself, thought that the end of the pandemic might be upon us, and I expected that we might now be talking about renewal and new beginnings. That will come, of course, but not just yet. We are still persevering through this new normal. Now, What is that can fortify all three, our mind, our body, and our soul, and help us on our journey? How do we keep our strength, our spirit, our determination through such a prolonged crisis? And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I expect that many of us can in some way relate to the following. At first, there was disbelief and trepidation in the face of our incrementally changing surroundings. Then came the feelings of dread as political tensions, conspiracy theories, problems such as food shortage and lost jobs started to sow discord. Shock and the feelings of helplessness stunned us as deaths hit closer to home. Blame is assigned to different segments of the society. The anxious thoughts of what darkness might be hiding in the hearts of people we thought we knew filled us with dread. We'll look for sources of strength and take in what we can. And then the stress and grief reach the point of numbness, the danger gets normalized, and we try to get on with our lives the best we can. However, how well we stay vigilant as we get on with our lives often affects how well we survive. While this, I feel, very much corresponds to the world under COVID-19, it also recalls stories found in historical records of major plagues and pandemics since the Black Death in the 14th century onward. Excuse me just a moment. The words I've just used to describe the current pandemic are also the exact words I used not long ago to describe my recollections of the initial stages of the war in my home country, Bosnia and Herzegovina, in the 90s. The way we as humans react to severe, stressful, dangerous sociopolitical changes seems to follow recognizable patterns regardless of where or when we are. Something else follows. Something with such power and influence in our lives that thinkers, philosophers, and authors across ages and traditions consider it as one of the main instruments of nothing less but the divine creation. It's music. Music's historical role in helping and guiding societies through times of crisis is undeniable and extremely reliable. Be it helping humanity get through pandemics, wars, revolutions, or the periods of renewal, recovery, and rebirth that follows, music is always there. In this pandemic, we've all heard stories of musicians throughout the world giving hope to their communities. In March 2020, Rafael Kohler, a Milanese trumpeter quarantined at home on account of COVID-19, found internet fame when a video of him playing his instrument at his window began circulating. Kohler explained that he played to instill hope, cheer up, and lend strength to the city. At the end of the talk, if we get a chance, so that I don't fiddle with the electronics now too much, we will play this video clip because it's worth seeing. This story made me think of my sister, Daniela, who at the age of 14 sang and played her guitar to our neighbors gathered outside the window of our house in Bosnia during some of the worst fightings of the war with the same purpose. And here in our city, in Memphis, local musicians continued bringing music to the different neighborhoods from the back of a trailer and other moving vehicles. Music has the ability to help us rise above the immediate hardship and prop us up, not only emotionally, but physically as well. It reminds us of who we are. It gives us strength through the memories it awakens. It inspires us to keep on going. It amplifies our hope. It amplifies our faith. In his book, titled Why Humans Like to Cry, a colleague of mine, the renowned British neuroscientist Michael Trimble, talks about an international study that showed that about 95% of people cry emotionally to music. Emotional crying was taken as a standard due to its complexity, both psychologically and physiologically. Now, humans are the only species on Earth that cry emotionally. In their survey, no other art form came close. When it came to poetry, which is known as very evocative, 60% of people cried. Painting, 5%. Architecture and sculpture, which people of course like, they're, however, not affected by it to the degree that they would cry. So there's definitely something very, very special about music. And although I said I would like to avoid this because of the possible danger of technical glitches, I would like to play with you this brief clip of our Milanese trumpeter on YouTube. So you will, and all of this is music that we hear. All right, maybe I will leave it for the end because it might take some shuffling. It's not there already. Now, I will play some music in the course of the talk. As you listen to this music, I would like us to give a think to other pieces, melodies that have a similar effect on you, on all of us. When I was talking to a friend of mine about this talk, and we mentioned Michael Trimble's book, he suggested a particular piece by Eric Clapton that moved him emotionally very much. So let's just listen to a couple of moments of this piece. Researchers today know a great deal about how we experience the emotional effects of music. Simply put, we convert sound waves into emotions with the help of hair cells inside of our ear. So basically, upon interacting with sound waves that reach our ear, these hair cells convert them into mechanical vibrations. These vibrations then set processes in motion that transform them into neural impulses, and brain interprets these impulses as emotions. Now, there are many amazing things here. Further research allows us to speculate that any cell in our body is capable of acting to sound or music. This discovery suggests that music could literally tweak or modify normal cell function and activities in each one of our cells. Figuring out how to do this with predictable income would be a revolution within the medical science. In terms of psychological benefits, the omnipresence of music in all of our lives, in one form or another, since our birth, can in this context be used to increase feelings of relaxation, calm, and pleasure, express and ease fears, anxieties, and other emotions that may be difficult to verbalize. It lessens feelings of isolation and loneliness. Music helps communicate, interact more effectively with others. It minimizes the perception of pain, which is also something I will be talking about. It improves the quality of life. It helps us find comfort and hope. Some of the physical benefits of music include improvements in vital signs, including a decrease in heart rate, a decrease in respiratory rate, and decrease in blood pressure. These findings are all highly relevant to the current pandemic, for example, and recent studies have further shown that the use of music in the ICU has been linked to better sleep while on ventilator and lower levels of traumatic distress. Regarding the cancer care, what is particularly relevant is that music helps increase a number as well as activity of natural killer cells in our body. Natural killer cells are an aggressive part of our immune system that aids in eliminating cancer cells. So as I mentioned, I will briefly touch on some of the elements listed, but not necessarily in chronological order. So music has the ability to decrease our pain perception. When listening to music, in short, our brain increases the release of the neurotransmitter dopamine, which decreases pain perception. Studies have shown that the music needs to be highly rhythmical, and one of my neuroscientist friends suggested listening to rock and roll or heavy metal. Interestingly, I spoke to an Uber driver a couple of weeks ago, and a heavy metal radio station was on in the car. I remarked on it, and he told me that his mother, while undergoing chemotherapy, started listening to the heavy metal band AC/DC, and some of you might be familiar, without ever being interested in the style of this music before, because now she felt that it made her feel better. And this is the song that she recommended. And I cannot believe that I will play you AC/DC in a synagogue. But here we go. This is Thunderstruck. So what we need is these very strong beats. All right. I see you liked it. Also, just to mention what you were just doing, tapping to the music, it's called entrainment, and humans are the only species on Earth that does that to music. It literally, our entire body starts to follow the beat. From our heartbeat, our feet are tapping onward. Now, if heavy metal is not necessarily your cup of tea, I found that Beethoven does similar thing. So it's building up to something very aggressive. And the fact is that many more people tap their feet to AC/DC. All right. The next beneficial healing effect of music is music music's ability to decrease stress. Now, on one hand, when dealing with negative stress, stress that causes anxiety, nervousness, restlessness, feelings of subjective worry, and so on, we need music that is the exact opposite of what we just heard. We need steady tempo, narrow dynamic range in both volume and melody. As your body perceives stress, your adrenaline glands make and release the hormone cortisol into your bloodstream. It's often called the stress hormone. It increases your heart rate, it increases your blood pressure. So listening to music with very narrow dynamic range in terms of volume, in terms of scalar ranges, tends to decrease your stress. And Einaudi is he's a contemporary piano composer who is very often used by music therapists when it comes to decreasing stress. So we're going to listen to a little bit of this as well. All right. What did we think? Was this relaxing? What about it was relaxing? Anybody can put a hand up. Yes. Okay, but it keeps on going, it flows.
It wasn't AC/DC.
Mm-hmm.
Your body, not like that. And then this, no, you just kind of tried to take it all in together and try to relax.
All right. Very good. Also, did you find that you're able to project whatever your thoughts are onto this? Much easier than you would be on AC/DC piece. You did? Then with this or with? Okay, that's very interesting. Why do you think that?
Well, I think I can relate to Beethoven only because I'm a musician and I saw
Okay.
Beethoven. So I think it's just, I guess, in my background, I can relate my experiences. So right away it hit me what I used to do, where I was when I heard this, when I first heard this.
Okay, so it's emotional connection. Okay.
And it was relaxing, but in a different way than the piano.
All right, very good. Well, of course, music, one of the big aspects of it is that it connects us to emotions, and emotional memory never goes away. The same piece can trigger an emotional memory, the same emotional memory 50 years after you've experienced it. So yes, go ahead. All right. So it's simplicity. Simplicity is also, it's extremely important in different aspects of using music clinically. Now, one of the great potential in terms of clinical use of music is in depression. Interestingly, recent research showed us that music increases neurogenesis in the brain, which is the brain's ability to produce neurons, which are nerve cells that carry electrical impulses around our brain. Now, the applications, this is fairly recent, and the applications of this are tremendous. One of them is treatment of depression. We used to think, for example, that depression is caused mainly by an imbalance of neurotransmitter in our brain, and antidepressants have been used to increase levels of serotonin, or the feel-good hormone within the brain. Now, if this was indeed true, people would be able to take an antidepressant and the result would be immediate. But it's not. It usually takes a long time, taking antidepressants for a long time. Now, however, today we know that the cortisol literally kills neurons in our brain, which contributes to depression. So we literally start losing neurons. The ability of music to help creation of brand new neurons in our brain opens up a new avenue in the treatment of depression, which it's quite revolutionary, as I mentioned before. Now, I will play for you another piece, and this one is actually performed by my British group, L'Avventura London. And what this is, and why this is particularly fitting for this purpose, is when music therapy deals with a client that suffers from depression. Usually what you start doing, you introduce a slow, I would say fairly melancholic sounding piece, because that way when you feel down, you can relate to that kind of music. And then they gradually build up in terms of tempo and texture, and that helps client feel better. Now, this particular piece does the same things, and we're going to listen to it for a little bit and try to see which parts of this composition would be particularly effective. This is La Folia by Arcangelo Corelli, so 18th century musician. Started very slow, the pulse is not very regular. Now this is going to be building up. We're not going to listen to the whole thing, but it builds up over the course of 12 minutes into a bit of a frenzy. Music is extremely beneficial when dealing with neurological disorders, such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Recent research has shown that music further increases the activity in the frontal lobe function dramatically. an experiment was undertaken very recently where music was played for 15 minutes for a few people. And then scans were done of their frontal lobe. So the increase in frontal lobe function was over 50% after listening to music only for 15 minutes. Now, the neuroscientist that conducted this particular study, his name is Dr. Kimonabu Sugaya, he later told me that what they used was Mozart's concerto for 2 pianos and orchestra. So Mozart double piano concerto, which only really contributes to this whole idea of a Mozart effect, which you may have heard about it. So let us listen to this a little bit. And then you tell me if you feel any different. All right. So what do you think would be so engaging about this piece?
Everything?
All right, wonderful. Mozart would have loved to hear this. So please share some of the elements. All right. Steadiness of the rhythm. Anybody else? Yes?
It has a strong melody line that moves from instrument to instrument.
Very good. That is indeed. And melody is one of the most important parts of a composition. And Mozart was renowned for being able to create melodies that simply stick with you long, long time after. Very good. Anybody else? It is.
Strings, the strings, very
Yeah, and there are two of them. There are two of them too, because there's a double concerto. So there's a lot of change of textures. There's a lot going on that needs to be followed as one listens to. All right. So as I mentioned, melody is particularly effective in awakening memories with which it is associated and strongly associated with emotions. Emotional memory never fades out. Numerous studies have shown that 50 years later, the same piece triggers the same memory. The same scientist that conducted when I spoke to him, when he conducted the study where he used Mozart double piano concerto, the first piece that he started talking about when we were conversing about the melody was Hotel California. To him, it had a special meaning. So let's listen to this a little bit. And can you tell me how is this piece different from the previous one? Aside from the obvious thing that genre is different. And yes, go ahead.
There are words to the song. Okay. There's a story that he's thinking about, and you follow along with the whole experience that he, of writing. I mean, for me, I think back to sitting in a car playing this song on the radio and singing along with him and following the journey that he's on.
Okay, then all of it comes back. Do you think that vocal music or instrumental music might be more effective in making us feel, just making us feel? Vocal music, well, what I mean by vocal music, it has words, so there's a story there.
I don't think either can succeed
All right.
I think that words are very powerful, but it's the music behind the words that get people into the words.
Okay.
The shouting, but it's, you know, like anything, movies, television, you take the music away, and there's not a lot of emotion there. You add the music to it, it brings it to a whole new level.
I completely agree. But let's say what I meant is more music with vocal line versus instrumental music without vocal line. Yes? Okay. All right. You feel that one gives you more space for, gives more space for your imagination to relate to it. All right, very good. Any other comments on this? Yes? Yeah, it is so difficult to hear. No. Yes. All right. Well, it's all about how much emotion can we put put into that piece of music, and all the tools that we can possibly use to that effect. Now, melody has been talked about a lot in medical circles in relation to music, but it is the rhythm that has been studied, that had so many studies done. Humans are the only species that I mentioned that, as I mentioned, that entrain to music, to the rhythm. So our heart, which beats typically 60 to 80 beats per minute, tends to follow the speed of music that we are listening to, which affects how we feel. We start to walk to the beat of the music that we are listening to, and so on. The applications of this are great in terms of, for example, Parkinson's patients, or when they start having difficulties walking, highly rhythmical music can help a lot. Such is a huge influence of rhythm on our body that if we consider, for example, many functions in our body happen based on some kind of a rhythm. Our heart pulsates. Roughly, there's a composition that comes to mind to Ravel's Bolero. Ravel's Bolero is circa 72 beats per minute. Our heart beats very close to that. And it beats some 38 million times in a year, 20,000 times each day. We inhale and exhale, mostly oblivious to that process. So our heartbeat, our breathing, many other things, it is all based on the rhythm. Each day, our body's circadian rhythm goes through the repeating cycle. The consequences of breaking any of slowing down or changing or interrupting the rhythm of many of these functions can have grave consequences. And when you think about it, we are dealing with music, we are dealing with medium that combines these different elements that actually make our body function, such as rhythm. So the applications are tremendous. Now, in my own work, I currently focus on the use of music in cancer care. I've been creating a method in part prompted by my late father's struggle with the disease. And this story can, I realize, be related to a wider experience of the pandemic as well. A few years after surviving the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina, my father was diagnosed with an advanced stage of colon cancer. I watched him fade away, turn from a valued, productive, and respected member of society into someone who lost all hope. he lost all sense of purpose. Someone who no longer wanted to dress in the morning, shave, go to his treatments. He was tired. He was tired in his body and his soul. He had already gone through 4 years of uncertainty, danger, acclimatizing to dramatic changes in the society, worry, tragedy, striving, persevering, and then the war ended. He was trying now to rebuild his life. He was seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, a reward for being stoic in the face of all the suffering during the 4 years of war. Then the diagnosis came. I remember the painful emptiness that I felt when he first informed me of this over the phone. And I was already in North America at this time. We both fell silent, and the silence said more than the words could ever express. It was the sound of defeat. It is a similar sense of defeat that I hear in the voices of many of our patients here in Memphis. For most of them, their survival depends on their willingness to fight, their continued sense of purpose, the feeling of being cared for, feeling of being cared about. They need a reason to get up in the morning. And music-based activities and treatments can do exactly that. According to the Oncology Nursing Society, by 2018, music was shown to have tremendous beneficial effect on anxiety, pain, fatigue, and quality of life, with effects on heartbeat, respiratory rate, blood pressure, among other benefits, in a systematic review of 52 clinical trials involving almost 4,000 patients with cancer. Some of the results of these clinical studies of music intervention in cancer care include significantly improved resilience in patients undergoing stem cell transplantation, for example, including reduced nausea, vomiting from chemotherapy, relieving stress, reduced blood pressure, lowered heart rate, and general promotion of well-being. Music can do all of that. Greater positive effect on post-chemotherapy anxiety than verbal relaxation, significantly greater decreases in pain measure scores, positive effects on treatment side effects and immunological changes, and music has the ability to cause decrease in vomiting and nausea, and many other beneficial effects. Also, what I forgot to tell you regarding stress and anxiety is that studies have shown that music has more beneficial effect than anti-anxiety pills, by far. Now, in conclusion, the importance of music in the Jewish tradition is clearly felt in the liturgy of Yom Kippur. Kol Nidre, Kaddish, Mishaberach all use its power. In Judaism, we do not pray. We sing the words we direct towards heaven. We don't read the Torah or rabbinical texts. We chant them. In various Jewish writings, the Torah is referred to as God's song, Shira. Music connects us with the divine. It inspires and fortifies as we carry the light through the chaos. The melodies that we hear and sing on this day connect us with the generations that came before us and the generations that will come after. They remind us that we are not alone and strengthen our connection with the world around us. When we get home this evening, let's remember the music that we love and let's listen to it at the start of this new year. It will give us the precious gift of joy. Whether it's listening, singing, playing, composing, or even just talking about it. It will help support us physically and psychologically and help us survive. It will relax us, help us to recover and recuperate. It will allow us to rest, help keep us healthy and strong. Music is indeed a gift from the divine and the essence of who we are, both spiritually and scientifically. Thank you for listening.
Friends, now you know what I'm talking about. I was just running to make sure we're ready for the next hour, and I told all the musicians in the sanctuary waiting for the contemporary service what you taught me the first half hour. And I can't wait, and I know all of you watching, so many are going to benefit from your scholarship. They couldn't believe that I had just run in after you played AC/DC in the synagogue. And when they asked why, I said, because an Uber driver's mother who had chemo benefited from it. That really threw them. But I know we went much deeper since the playing of Beethoven and the La Avventura. If you want to go to Žak Ozmo, you can hear the symphony. But more importantly, Memphis is going to be the epicenter for this connection between music, healing, and health. So this is not just a one-off. This is just the beginning. And once again, we are so blessed that Jacques, Vanessa, and their two daughters, who are both named here at Temple Israel, are part of Memphis now. Thank you, Jacques.
Thank you so much.
As promised, we want to give you stretch breaks. Two options at 2:30. If you just want to go virtual and study Life, Liberty, the Pursuit of Holiness with Joe Levy, or our Ruach service begins at 2:30 in the main sanctuary. Back here at 3:30 for Leo Bierman Hour, and then Yisker and the grand finale.